Hey, it's Captain Matt, Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon, and I'm here with some cutouts of drives. So this is a MerCruiser Alpha drive, single prop. We also have a MerCruiser Bravo 3, which is going to be a counter-rotating prop. And then out of frame, we've got a Volvo DP, again, dual counter-rotating props. Couple of things that I want to show you so you know what's happening in that lower unit and why is maintenance on it so important. So I'm actually going to pull you a little bit closer so you can see some of this. So what you have here is a clutch dog, which is going to put it in forward reverse. So when you pull your lever, whether it's digital or whether it's a shift cable, it's pulling this over, and you'll notice that that's switching from this front gear to the back gear, and what that's doing is putting you in forward or reverse. Now, here's why maintenance is so critical on this, is if you look, as you go your throttle, this is going to spin much, much faster than I can do it here, but that's essentially turning the prop. Whichever gear that clutch dog is in is going to put you in forward reverse. The more throttle you give, the faster this is going to spin from the head unit down, transferring that power to the prop. Now, if you can imagine this going at 2,000 RPMs going through idle up to 4, 5, 6,000 RPM if at wide open throttle, the friction that's happening down here. So this whole section is going to be bathed in your gear lube. If you get water in there, if you're not taking care and changing that fluid and it's dirty, it's breaking down, it's not giving you the protection on these gears. And if these gears aren't working, your lower unit's not working. The other thing I want you to look at is the thickness of this metal right here. So this is the gear casing, and all that's doing is protecting all these gears, keeping that fluid in, keeping the water out. So you've got seals up in here, the prop shaft seal that's keeping water out and keeping that gear lube bathing all of these gears, right? So what's important is to keep your gear lube clean, keep it free of water and water intrusion, and making sure that your gear case doesn't get eaten up with that corrosion if you leave that in the water. Not as common on the Alpha drives because not as many of those are left in the water. Now, let's move up to the MerCruiser Bravo 3, which is going to be a counter-rotating prop, a little bit more complex. They don't use the clutch dog, which gives the kind of the notorious MerCruiser clunk. That's the way it's supposed to sound, so don't think that that's anything wrong as you're going in and out of gear, because it's sort of chunking in this way to that way. Now let's look at the, you want to say hi real quick, buddy? Hi. Here we are with the Bravo 3 drive, okay? This has the cone clutch, which instead of going in and out between gears, this has a little bit smoother shifting. You'll notice the Bravo 3's Volvo Penta does it the same way on both of their drives, but you have the clutch going up and down in a cone fashion. So it's going to push it up for forward or reverse. I'm not sure which is which. Down for the opposite, which is going to allow you to adjust the way your propellers are spinning. You notice down here in your prop shaft, you've got, they're going to be turning two different ways. So this outer one's going to be turning one way. The inner one is going to be turning the opposite way. That's how that's going to work. But you still have the same concept down here. You've got all of these gears turning, which is why keeping up with your gear lube, keeping that in good condition, good clean gear lube with no water intrusion is going to be critical, okay? So the same thing with the water jackets. Now, one thing you need to know with the Bravo 3 drives is you have typically a stainless steel propeller here, which can cause what's called galvanic corrosion. The two dissimilar metals being together can cause corrosion on the drive. It's going to attack the easiest to attack, weakest metal that's in the area, which is why we put anodes, zincs, or whatever you want to call them on the boat, depending on the type of water you're in. That's going to protect this gear casing from getting eaten up with corrosion, which can be very expensive. You either got to sand it and paint it to re-protect it, or if it gets too bad, you got to replace the gear casing, which is very expensive. Much cheaper to keep up with a couple $100 anode kit, so that that gets attacked by that corrosion instead of your very valuable and important gear casing, okay? Now, another thing I want to show you, because here we actually have the U-joint, the gimbal, that's going to be spinning. If you can imagine the power plant coming here, that's being transferred. You'll have your gimbal bearing that's going to ride right here. This isn't something that there's a certain sound that you'll hear when that gimbal bearing's going out, but it's a maintenance item that you need to keep up with. The other thing that is happening here is, if you imagine that this is sitting on your transom and you've got a hole in your boat, that transom housing that's going to be coming into the boat, giving you access to the power, your shift cable. This is what your bellows are covering. So your bellows are right here to keep water from getting into this very important and valuable system that's working here. Your shift cable will be coming through, and your exhaust bellows will also be coming through. It's a little different. So that's why the bellows are important. And sort of everything's operating together on these stern drives. But I wanted you to see how everything works and why you may think, oh, my gear lube, it's not that important. It's incredibly important. And there's so many places where water can get in, whether it's the prop shaft seal, whether it's a leak in the bellows, whether there's, God forbid you get so much corrosion that water's getting in that way, or a crack in your gear casing. That's all potentially catastrophic to these drives. Okay, so this is the Bravo 3 Mercruiser Bravo 3 counter rotating drive. Now let's take a look at the Volvo counter rotating drive. Very similar, but they do a couple of things different. Okay, here we are on the Volvo DP, the dual prop drive. You can see, again, just like the Bravo 3, we've got an inner and an outer prop shaft. Now on this one, I can shift it so you can see the way that cone clutch works. It's very, very similar to Mercruiser, but we're in neutral right now. We shift to forward, you can see that moving up, and we're going to be on this. And then we move lock and neutral, and then we move down, and we're going to be on this. Now, our prop shaft is broken on this cutout, but the same thing's going to happen is you're going to be turning, and that's going to be propelling the boat. That same gear lube, the same gear casing, the same keeping up with the anodes, keeping your bellows in good shape, all applies. But this is what's going on in that gear casing, just so you can see how important it is. And you can imagine if you're changing your gear lube and you find metal shavings, what's that tell you? That tells you that some of these gears are getting worn out. And if they get worn out, eventually it's not going to propel your boat forward properly. And imagine this spinning at 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 RPM, how much heat, how much friction is being developed down here. So this is what's going on with your lower units. It's very, very similar when you're looking at an outboard. From this point down, you don't have the power coming in from the side. Your power's coming from straight up top on the power head, but you get the same concept going on from the we'll call it the midsection down in that environment.